Christmas dinner was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, my own son stood up in front of 25 relatives and told me I had to start paying rent or leave his home. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I simply looked at him and smiled, because Matthew had no idea who actually owned the penthouse he was so proudly calling his home. The 2,000-square-foot penthouse on the Upper East Side? Mine. The gray Cadillac he drove every day? Mine. The credit card his wife Audrey used for luxury shopping on Fifth Avenue? Mine. And the money behind the life they proudly claimed they had built themselves? Mine, too. Matthew thought he was ordering his widowed mother to become more independent. He had no idea he was about to lose everything he believed he had earned. I am Catherine Vega. I am 64 years old, and this is the story of how my silence nearly destroyed my only son, and how finally breaking that silence saved him. Present scene. The aroma of the roasted turkey filled every corner of the penthouse. I had been working since 6th hour in the morning preparing the apple pie, the homemade pecan bars, and the candied yams that Matthew had loved since he was a child. 25 people were settling down in the dining room. Cousins, uncles, Matthew's friends, Audrey's colleagues. The table shone with china dinnerware and crystal glasses that reflected the lights of the Christmas tree. I moved from the kitchen to the dining room, serving, clearing plates, refilling glasses of California's Infidel. My apron was stained with gravy. My hair was pulled back in a simple bun. My hands, wrinkled by the ears, trembled slightly as I held the heavy serving platter. Lucy, sit down for a moment. My cousin Sarah told me with that condescending smile I knew so well. You've done enough. It's fine. I'm okay, I replied, forcing a smile. From my position next to the open-plan kitchen counter, I could see the whole dining room. Matthew was sitting at the head of the table in his white linen shirt and that Rolex watch Audrey had given him last year. He was talking to his cousin Alex about his latest project, an office building on Park Avenue. This month has been absolutely insane, Matthew was saying. Gesticulating with his wine glass. The client is pushing hard on the deadlines. But hey, the salary for a senior architect in New York isn't bad at all. It's enough to keep this place, the car, and everything else. Audrey, sitting next to him, smiled with satisfaction. She was wearing a red dress that probably cost more than a nurse's monthly salary. Her perfectly manicured nails sparkled as she stroked Matthew's arm. And even so, Audrey added, slightly raising her voice so everyone could hear, the bills never stop coming. This house, the decorations, maintaining the lifestyle, nothing is free in New York City. Several heads nodded. My Uncle George cleared his throat. They are right. Rents in this area are impossible. $500 to $3,000 a month for a decent apartment. Exactly. Matthew straightened up in his chair. That's why I always say you have to work hard. No one gives you anything for free in this city. I felt a knot in my stomach, but kept serving the turkey. No one looked at me. No one noticed how my hands gripped the serving spoon harder than necessary. The conversation continued to revolve around money, the cost of living, and how hot it was to make ends meet for people who had just asked for the third bottle of $40 wine. Then it happened. Matthew wiped his mouth with his napkin, took a sip of wine, and looked directly at me. There was something in his eyes that I recognized immediately, the same determination his father, Anthony, had when he made important decisions. But this time that look brought nothing good. Mom, he said with a tone that cut off all conversations, since we are talking about the subject of the house. The dining room fell silent. 25 pairs of eyes turned toward me. I've been thinking, he continued, placing his glass on the table with a soft but firm thud, that if you want to continue living here with us, you should contribute a portion of the rent, like any adult who shares a space. Time stopped. It's only fair, right? He added, looking around the table for approval. We are all adults, and if that's difficult for you with your widows, Pension. Well, maybe it would be better for you to look for something more in line with your means. Audrey nodded, taking a sip of wine. Nowadays, everyone must be responsible for their own expenses, even if they are family. In fact, precisely because we are family, we should be honest about these things. I looked around the table. My cousin, Sarah, avoided my gaze. Uncle George coughed uncomfortably and concentrated on his plate. I saw a couple of guests nod slightly as if saying, "It makes sense." Pat even murmured, "Well, it's true that nowadays at our age we have to be more independent." No one, not a single person, raised their voice in my defense. No one said, "How can you talk to your mother like that?" No one asked, "Are you really kicking your mother out on Christmas?" The silence was so dense that I could hear the tick-tock of the wall clock in the kitchen. I felt as if 28 years of sacrifice, of sleepless nights, building an empire so my son could have a future, evaporated in the penthouse's air conditioning. Carefully, I placed the serving spoon on the counter. I folded my napkin and placed it next to my untouched plate. I stood up, feeling my knees creak slightly. "Thank you all for coming," I said in a voice so calm that even I was surprised. "This Christmas dinner will probably be the last one I spend in this house." Matthew blinked, confused. "Mom, you don't have to be so dramatic. We are just talking about being realistic with—" "You're right, Matthew," I interrupted, him, looking him directly in the eyes. "It's time to be realistic." I turned around and walked toward the hallway that led to my bedroom. Behind me, I heard uncomfortable murmurs, the scraping of chairs, someone trying to resume the conversation with a, "So who wants dessert?" I closed my bedroom door. The sound of the latch was soft, but in my head it resonated like the closing of a complete chapter of my life. Flashback 30 years ago, I sat on the edge of the bed and looked around the small room that had been my refuge for the past 3 years. A single bed, an antique wardrobe, 2 photo frames on the nightstand. I picked one of them up, Anthony and I, on the day we inaugurated our first building in the Chelsea neighborhood. I was 34. I wore a simple floral dress and my hair was pulled back. Anthony held the ceremonial scissors ready to cut the ribbon. Behind us, a modest 4-story building. Our first dream come true. Reflective narration. How did I get here? How did I go from being a young mother with a dream to a widow supported by her son? Let me tell you the truth. The truth no one at that table knew. Flashback continues. 1989. Anthony and I met in rural Virginia. I was 19 years old. I worked cleaning houses. He was a construction worker. He was 22 and had the most hard-working hands I had ever seen in my life. We got married 6 months later in a simple ceremony at the town church. The honeymoon was a weekend in Myrtle Beach. When Matthew was born, we lived in a 300 FT studio in the Queensboro. Anthony worked in construction 12 hours a day. I did bookkeeping for small businesses from home with Matthew, sleeping in a crib next to me. Every dollar we earned went into a metal box we hid under the bed. No splurges, no vacations, only work, saving, and one dream to buy our own property. It took us 12 years of counting pennies, 12 years of turning down dinners with friends because we already ate, 12 years of second-hand clothes from the flea market, 12 years of watching Matthew grow up in that tiny studio, sharing our bed until he was 7 because there was no space for another. In 1995, we finally bought our first apartment, 500 square FD in Chelsea for $45,000. We renovated it ourselves. Anthony installed the plumbing. I painted the walls. Matthew, at 6 years old, handed us the tools. We rented it to a young couple for $400 a month. That money went into another box, and then to another apartment and another. Anthony had a gift. He could see an abandoned building and visualize exactly how to turn it into something beautiful. I had another gift. I could make every dollar multiply in the ledgers. In 2003, we bought our fifth building. The lawyer suggested we create a company to handle everything legally. Anthony thought of the sparrows he always saw on the electrical wires in Chelsea, those small but tireless birds. Vega Properties, he said, like our last name, but with wings. Together we overcame the 2008 financial crisis. When others sold in panic, we bought with strategy buildings in Brooklyn, apartments in Soho, commercial spaces in the Upper East Side. By 2015, Vega Properties had 47 properties in its portfolio. And then, one rainy Tuesday in November of 2017, Anthony put his hand to his chest while reviewing some blueprints in our office. Kath was the last thing he said before he fell. The hospital informed me it had been a massive heart attack. He didn't suffer, were the doctor's words, as if they were a comfort. Return to present. I opened the nightstand drawer and took out a manila folder. Inside were documents that no one in this house knew existed. Articles of incorporation for Vega Properties, LC stock shares. Catherine Vega, 85%. Executive Director James Torres. Property contracts, penthouse, Upper East Side, East 70th Street, 234. Owner, Vega Properties, LCCC Comanche. Vehicle, Cadillac, A6 registered to Vega Properties, LSE. Authorized user, temporary, Matthew Vega. Additional credit card, primary. Account, Catherine Vega. I slowly flipped through the pages. Each document was a reminder of what I had built, of what I had allowed my son to believe was his. Flashback 3 years ago. Matthew had finished his architecture degree. He got a job at a respectable firm. His salary was $200 a month. Not bad for New York, but not enough for the lifestyle he had always dreamed of. One day he came to visit me at the Vega Properties office. I kept a low profile, working from a small office in the back of the building while James handled the public meetings as CO. Mom, Matthew said, sitting down across from my desk, I want to move out on my own. I found an apartment for rent in the Upper East Side, but it costs $2,000 a month. With my salary, it's possible, but it's tight. I looked at my son. He had inherited Anthony's eyes, that determination. But there was also some youthful naive that didn't yet know the real price of things. I opened the Vega Properties system on my computer. We have an empty penthouse on East 70th Street, I told him. 2,000 square FT, renovated 2 years ago. Market value $3,500 a month. Matthew's eyes widened. Mom, that's way out of my budget. I'll rent it to you for $400. I said, it's an internal discount. Employees, sun rate. Seriously? His face lit up. But won't you need it? I'm fine in my apartment in Chelsea, I lied. In reality, that Chelsea apartment was also mine, but he didn't know it. Besides, I prefer to live simply. You're young. You deserve a nice place. He signed the contract that same week. On paper, it said Leasy. Matthew Vega, Lesser Vega Properties, LCT. He never asked who was behind Vega Properties. 2 months later, Audrey appeared in his life, a fashion influencer with 50,000 followers on Instagram. I saw her posting photos of the penthouse. My architect boyfriend has impeccable taste for spaces. When they got married, I gave him something else, an additional credit card linked to my account. Just for emergencies, I told him, in case you ever need something important. Something important became dinners at Michelin restaurants. Emergencies were $2,000 handbags. I received the statements every month and paid them in silence. $600 here, $200 there, $400 on a trip to Miami. I never said anything. And when Matthew asked if he could use one of the company cars to better represent himself in meetings with clients, James signed the authorization, which I approved from my small office. It's temporary, I told James, just until he saves up for his own car. 3 years later, that temporary was still his gray Cadillac. Present decision. I took out my cell phone. It was 11:47 p.m. on Christmas night. Outside, the fireworks from some private party lit up the New York City sky. I dialed a number. I had on speed dial. James, it's Catherine. Catherine, Merry Christmas. Is everything okay? His voice sounded worried. James Torres had been Antony's right-hand man after my husband's death. He had become my confidant and the only one who knew the full truth about my role in Vega Properties. I need you to prepare all the documents related to Matthew first thing tomorrow morning, I said, looking at the photos on the wall, the lease agreement, the vehicle authorization, the statements for the additional credit card. There was a silence on the other end. Catherine, are you sure? Completely sure, I replied. It's time for my son to learn the true meaning of the word independence that he loves to use so much. I took a suitcase out of the closet. Dust billowed up when I opened it. Inside were still the tags from a trip to Boston that Anthony and I had planned to take before his death. We never made it. I started folding my clothes. I didn't have much. 3 blouses, 2 pairs of pants, 1 sweater, underwear, my comfortable shoes. Everything fit perfectly in half a suitcase. I stopped in front of the closet mirror. A 64-year-old woman looked back at me. Gray hair pulled back, wrinkles around my eyes, hands stained by years of work. I had spent almost 40 years building something important, and in the last 3, I had allowed my son to trample that legacy while I served dinner in silence. Why did I do it? Why did I let him believe that lie? Because I wanted him to be happy, because I wanted him to feel successful, capable, independent, because I thought that if I gave him everything, he would naturally feel grateful. I was wrong. Silent love that sets no boundaries is not love. It is complicity with selfishness. I closed the suitcase. The sound of the zipper was final. I took my purse, put in my wallet, my phone, the keys to my other apartment, the real one, the one Matthew had never seen, and opened the bedroom door. The sound of laughter and music came from the dining room. They had resumed the party. They probably thought I was crying in my room, that tomorrow I would come out remorseful, begging forgiveness for ruining their Christmas. I dragged the suitcase down the hall. The wheels on the hardwood floor made a screeching sound that cut the music like a knife. Conversation ceased. 25 heads turned. Audrey was the first to speak with that condescending smile. Catherine, don't be dramatic. No one is kicking you out. We are just having an adult conversation about responsibilities. I interrupted her. You're right, Audrey. It's time for all of us to be responsible adults. Matthew got up from the table, his cheeks slightly red from the wine. Mom, where are you going? I didn't mean it about you leaving tonight. I just wanted you to understand that. I understood perfectly, I said, standing firm by the door. I understood that you believe this. House is yours, that the car is yours, that everything you have is thanks to your effort, because it is. Audrey stood up too. Matthew works hard. He gets up early, works late. No one gave him anything for free. I looked her directly in the eyes. There was so much I could have said at that moment. I could have revealed everything right there. I could have pulled out the property documents and thrown them in their faces. But I didn't, because the best lesson doesn't come from words. It comes from consequences. You're right, I said simply. No one gives anything for free. See you soon. I opened the penthouse door. Matthew took a step toward me. Mom, at least tell me where you're going. Let me call you a cab. No need, I replied. I already ordered a car. But at least send me a text when you get to wherever you're going. just to let me know you're okay. I looked him in the eyes. My son, the boy I had held in my arms, the young man I had seen graduate, the man who had just chosen pride over love. When I deem it necessary to communicate, I will, I said softly. Merry Christmas, Matthew. I closed the door behind me. The building hallway was silent, illuminated by cold lead lights. I dragged my suitcase toward the elevator. I didn't look back. I didn't cry. I just breathed. For the first time in 3 years, I breathed without the weight of a lie crushing my chest. The elevator descended the 7 floors in silence. When the doors opened on the ground floor, the night doorman looked up, surprised. Miss Vega, are you leaving? So late. Robert, I said, remembering his name, even though he probably thought I was. Just Matthew's mother. Could you do me a favor? Of course. When they come to pick up the gray Cadillac in the next few days, the one in parking space number 7, allow them access. They have authorization from the company. Robert blinked, confused, but nodded. As you say, Mom. Outside, a black Lincoln waited for me. It wasn't a cab, it was a Vega Properties car driven by Mike, one of our trusted employees. Good evening, Miss Vega, he said, taking my suitcase to the Upper West Side apartment, please. I settled into the back seat. Nighttime New York passed by. The window, the illuminated streets, tourists walking even on Christmas, closed stores with bright window displays. This city, my city, I had conquered it, dollar by dollar, brick by brick, contract by contract, and somewhere along the way I had become invisible in my own story. The car turned onto Broadway. Upper West Side was a quiet, residential neighborhood, very different from the bustling Upper East Side. This was where I really lived. Ain't 805 at T. Apartment in a 4-story building. No doorman, no luxuries. Mike stopped the car in front of number 23. Do you need help with the suitcase? No, thank you. I can manage. I climbed the stairs. There was no elevator to the 2nd floor. I opened the door with my key. The apartment smelled unused, like a place that was often closed up. It was my secret refuge, the place I came to when I needed to think, work without interruptions, or simply be Catherine Vega, businesswoman, instead of Catherine, the single mother living off her son's charity. I left the suitcase by the door and sat on the couch. The silence was absolute. No music, no laughter, no son telling me to pay or leave, just me and the decisions I would have to make at dawn. I took out my phone. I had 3 missed calls from Matthew, 1 text message. Mom, please tell me you're okay. I didn't want you to leave like that. It was just a conversation. Call me. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and logged into the Vega Properties system. I clicked on the folder Matthew Vega. Assigned assets. A list appeared. Lease agreement East, 70th Street, 234. Expires January 31, 2024. Assigned vehicle Cadillac A6 temporary. Authorization. Additional credit card. Limit $5,000 linked to primary account. 3 clicks, that was all I needed to change my son's life. Was I being cruel? Vengeful? No. I was being a mother who finally understood that the greatest act of love is not giving everything, but teaching the value of every single thing. I closed the laptop. Tomorrow I would talk to James. Tomorrow the process would begin. That night I slept better than I had in 3 years. The Vega Properties office occupied the 3rd floor of a modernist building on Park Avenue, right between 2 luxury stores. I arrived at 8:30 a.m. on December 27th. The receptionist, a young woman named Sophia, almost spilled her coffee when she saw me. Miss Vega, we weren't expecting, good morning. Good morning, Sophia. Is James here? Yes, he arrived half an hour ago. He's in his office. I walked down the hall. The walls were decorated with photographs of our most emblematic buildings, in one of them, taken 5 years ago at the inauguration of a residential complex in Brooklyn. Anthony appeared, with his construction helmet, smiling at the camera. Next to him, blurred in the background, was me. No one knew who that woman was, just another employee. I knocked on James's door. "Come in." James Torres was 45 years old, with graying hair at the temples always, impeccably dressed. When he saw me, he immediately stood up. "Catherine, please, sit down." I didn't sit down right away. I went to the window. From here you could see the entire avenue, the morning traffic, tourists with their maps, New Yorkers rushing to the subway. "Did you bring the documents?" I asked. James opened a manila folder on his desk. "Everything is here, but before we continue, I need to ask you, are you absolutely sure once we start this?" "James," I turned to him, "Anthony and I built this in silence with humility. We never wanted to be the rich family that shows off. But at some point, my silence stopped being humility and became a lie that allowed my son to talk to me as if I were a burden." "I know," he said softly. I disagreed with keeping him in the dark from the beginning, but I respected your decision. It was my mistake, I admitted, and it is my responsibility to correct it. I finally sat down. James slid the folder toward me. I opened it. The first document was the penthouse lease agreement. It had been signed 3 years ago, automatically renewed every year. Clause 2, Eb 3, the less may terminate the contract with 30 days prior notice if they do not wish to renew. The second document was the vehicle authorization. Simple, direct. Vega Properties LLC authorizes the temporary use of the Cadillac A6. Vehicle license plate 482 km Matthew. Vega for the purpose of company representation. This authorization may be revoked at any. No. The third was the credit card report for the last 6 months. My hands trembled seeing the numbers. 11 Madison Park, 2-star Michelin, restaurant, $84.7 Adaways, Louis Vuitton, 5th Avenue, $400, Four Seasons Hotel, New York Executive Suite, $2,300 in times, trip to Las Vegas, $3,000, Ethan Allen Designer Furniture, $1,900. The list went on, page after page of expenses that totaled $47,320 in 6 months. Meanwhile, I was still wearing the same old navy coat from 5 years ago. "Did you also bring Rachel?" I asked, referring to our lawyer. "She's waiting in the conference room." Rachel Martinez was a 50-year-old woman with a reputation for being ruthless but fair. She had handled all our legal affairs since Anthony died. When I entered the conference room, she already had her laptop open and several legal codes marked with yellow sticky notes. "Catherine," she said, shaking my hand. "James gave me a heads up on the situation. I'm very sorry about what happened." "I don't need condolences," I said, sitting down. "I need legal solutions." Rachel nodded, appreciating my directness. "Very well. We have 3 assets your son currently enjoys: the residence, the vehicle, and the credit card. Let's look at the options for each." She opened a presentation on her laptop and turned the screen toward me. "Property, penthouse, Upper East Side. The contract is about to expire on January 31st. Legally, you have the right not to renew it. You just need to send a formal notice with 30 days. Advance warning, which would be today, December 27th. What if he refuses to leave? Then we initiate eviction proceedings. But, honestly, Catherine, I don't think it will come to that. When he receives the notice from a property management company, not from his mother, it will be different. And if he tries to find out who the owner is," Rachel smiled slightly, "Vega Properties LLC is a limited liability company. The shareholders are not public. He would have to request information from the Secretary of State's corporate registry, which takes time, and by the time he does, the 30 days will have passed. Cadillac A6 vehicle, she continued. This one is more straightforward. It is. Company property. He only has authorization to use it. We can revoke it immediately and request the return of the vehicle. How is that done? We send a formal communication requesting the return within 48 hours. If he doesn't comply, we send a company employee with a tow truck and the spare keys. Do it, I said without hesitation. Credit card, Rachel said. This is the simplest of all. It's an additional card. On your personal account, you can cancel it with a phone call. Immediate effect. I looked at the 3 documents in front of me. My son would receive 3 blows. In a matter of days, he would lose his house, his car, his unlimited access to money. Is it too harsh? James asked softly. We could do this gradually. First, the card, then the car, then no, I interrupted him. Gradual would be cruel. It would be like cutting off a finger every day, instead of ripping off the bandage all at once. He needs to feel the full impact to understand the magnitude of his mistake. Rachel looked at me with something resembling respect. You are stronger than I thought. I am not strong, I said. I am a mother who was blind for 3 years and finally decided to open her eyes. We spent the next 2 hours drafting the documents. 1 letter of non-renewal of contract. Dear Mr. Matthew Vega, Vega Properties, lessee in its capacity as a lessor of the property located at East 70th Street, 234, New York, hereby notifies you that the lease agreement expiring on January 31, 2024 will not be renewed in accordance with the residential tenant law. You have until the indicated date to vacate the property in the same condition in which it was delivered. Sincerely, James Torres, Executive Director, Vega Properties, LTC Properties in and Elder. 2. Request for vehicle return. Dear Mr. Matthew Vega, the purpose of this letter is to inform you that the temporary authorization for the use of the Cadillac A6 vehicle, license plate 482 Callum, property of Vega Properties, LC, is revoked as of this date. We request the return of the vehicle within a maximum of 48 hours to our facility on Park Avenue 89. Failure to comply with this request will result in us proceeding to recover the asset through corresponding legal means. Sincerely, Asset Department Vega Properties LC. 3. Credit card cancellation. This one only required a call to the bank. Rachel dialed the number on speakerphone. Chase Bank, Card Department, Lisa. Speaking. How may I help you? Good morning, Rachel said. I am calling on behalf of Miss Catherine Vega, holder of the account ending in C88823. We need to cancel an additional card. Of course. Can you provide the name of the additional holder? Matthew Vega, 1. Moment, please. Yes, here it is. Do you want immediate or scheduled cancellation? Rachel looked at me. I nodded. Immediate. Perfect. The card will be blocked in the system in approximately 2 hours. Anything else? Yes, I added, leaning toward the phone. I would like to receive a detailed expense report for the last 12 months. For that card, please. Of course, Miss Vega. We will email it to you in the course of the day. We hung up. Rachel closed her laptop. That's it. The documents will be sent by certified mail and email today. The card will be canceled before noon. The car? When do you want us to recover it? Tomorrow, I said. Give him time to read the letter first. Let him understand that this is serious. James leaned back in his chair. And you? Where will you be when all this explodes? In my apartment on the Upper West Side. I don't plan to hide if Matthew looks. For me, he knows where the office is. But I'm not going to make anything easy for him. And if he goes to the press? Rachel asked. Millionaire mother kicks out her son. That could be a juicy headline. Let him, I said. I have 28 years of documents showing exactly how I built this empire, and I have 6 months of Statements showing how he and his wife used it as their personal ATM. I stood up, my knees creaked slightly. 64 years. Sometimes I felt every one of them in my bones. Thank you both. I know this is uncomfortable, Catherine, James said, also standing up. Anthony would be proud of you. He always said true love sets boundaries. I wish you had listened to him sooner. I felt a lump in my throat. Anthony, how much I missed him in moments like this. I wish I had too, I whispered. I left the office at 11:30 a.m. The 30 m. Winter sun shone on Park Avenue. Tourists were taking photos of the St. Patrick's Cathedral. A young couple was arguing about which restaurant to choose. For lunch, normal life continued. I stopped in front of the Louis Vuitton window. There on the center mannequin was a bag I recognized from the statements 263 for. Audrey had bought it in October and flaunted it on her Instagram with the caption, "When your husband spoils you." At that moment, my phone vibrated. A message from Matthew. "Mom, good morning. Where are you? I stopped by the Chelsea apartment I thought was yours, but the doorman says a young couple lives there. Can you call me? I'm worried." I put the phone away without responding. I walked to a small coffee shop in Soho, one of those that don't have Instagram, just good coffee and honest sandwiches. I ordered a cortado and a cross, the total $3.55. Audrey probably spent that on a single fingernail at the manicurist. My phone rang. It was James. The emails were sent, he said. Matthew should receive them any minute. Perfect. Catherine, are you really okay? Yes, I replied, looking out the coffee shop window. For the first time in 3 years, I'm okay. I hung up and took a sip of coffee. Hot, strong, unadorned, just like the truth that was about to hit my son. Day 1, December 28th, 9:15 a.m. Matthew opened his laptop at the penthouse dining table. Audrey was still asleep. The night before, they had been up until 3:00 in the morning arguing about the Catherine drama. Exaggerated, Audrey had said, "Your mother has always been dramatic. She'll be back tomorrow begging for forgiveness." But that morning, there were no messages from his mother, no calls, just a strange silence that gave him a nod in his stomach. He clicked on his inbox. Among the corporate Christmas emails and newsletters he never read, he saw a subject line that chilled his blood. Formal notification, lease agreement, termination. Sender, Vega Properties Administration. His heart started beating faster. He opened the email with trembling hands. He read the first line, then the second. Then he had to read the whole thing 3 times because his brain refused to process the words. Will not be renewed. Vacate the property. January 31, 2024. What the hell? He whispered. He immediately looked up the phone number at the bottom of the email and dialed. It rang 4 times before a professional female voice answered. Vega Properties. Administration Department. Good morning. Yes. Hello. This is Matthew Vega. His voice sounded tense. I just received an email about the termination of my lease agreement. It must be a mistake. I have always paid on time. I have never had problems with one moment. Mr. Vega, let me check your file. Matthew heard the tapping of a keyboard. Each second felt like an eternity. Mr. Vega, there is no mistake. The owner has decided not to renew the contract. It is their legal right according to Clause 12.3 of your agreement. But why did I do something wrong? I don't have that information, sir. We only execute the owner's decisions. Who is the owner? Matthew asked, feeling panic starting to climb up his throat. I need to talk to them. This makes no sense. That information is confidential. If you wish to appeal the decision, you may send a formal written request to our office on Park Avenue. Park Avenue. Matthew frowned. I know that office. It's near where I work. Is there anything else I can help you with? Yes. Can I at least continue renting when the apartment goes back on the market? Of course, when the property is Available again, you can apply like any other applicant. The current market price for that unit is approximately $3,800 a month. Matthew almost dropped the phone. $3,800. But I pay $1,400. Mr. Vega, a preferential price that will no longer apply. The line went dead. Matthew sat there staring at his phone. Screen. $3,800. His monthly salary was $2,800. After taxes, it was mathematically impossible. Matthew. Audrey appeared in the bedroom, doorway wrapped in an expensive silk robe. Why are you yelling? We're being evicted, he said in a hollow voice. We have to be out of the apartment before January 31st. Audrey blinked as if he had spoken a foreign language. No, that can't be. This is your apartment. It's rented. Matthew muttered. It always has been. But you pay on time. You have rights as a tenant. They can't just yes, they can. And they did. Audrey walked over and read the email. Over Matthew's shoulder, her face changed from confusion to disbelief and then to fury. This is because of last night, isn't it? Your mother did this? Somehow she convinced the owner to I don't know. Matthew ran his hands through his hair. I don't know, but I need to find out. He grabbed his jacket and the Cadillac keys. Where are you? Going to the Vega Properties office. I'm going to talk to someone face to face. This cannot be happening. 12:30 p.m. Vega Properties office. Matthew parked the Cadillac in a nearby parking garage. $4.50 an hour, a small fortune he usually didn't care about, and walked quickly toward the building on Park Avenue. He had never been there before. The facade was elegant, modernist, with high windows and row-iron balconies. A discreet plaque next to the entrance. Read, Vega Properties, LC, 3rd floor. He climbed the stairs to at a time. When he reached the reception desk, a young woman greeted him with a professional smile. Good morning. How may I help you? I need to speak with the director, the manager, whoever makes the decisions. Here, Matthew said, trying to remain calm. I'm a tenant and I just received an eviction notice that makes no sense. My name is Matthew Vega. The receptionist checked something on her computer and her expression changed slightly, almost imperceptibly. But Matthew noticed it. One moment, please. She stood up and disappeared down a hallway. Matthew took the opportunity to look around. The walls were decorated with photographs of buildings. He recognized some. The Complex Inn, Brooklyn, the offices in Soho, and he froze. In a large photograph in the center of the wall was his father, Anthony Vega, in a construction helmet, smiling in front of a half-built building. The plaque underneath read, Anthony Vega, co-founder 1989 to 2017 in memoriam. Co-founder. His father had been a construction worker. He had never mentioned owning a part of Mr. Vega, a man in his mid-40s, with an impeccable suit and graying hair. At the temples approached, hand extended. I am James Torres, Executive Director of Vega Properties. I understand you have concerns about your lease agreement. Matthew automatically shook his hand, but his mind was still processing the photograph of his father. Yes, excuse me, that photo, my father worked here. James followed his gaze, and something akin to sadness crossed his face. Anthony was much more than an employee, but that is a separate issue. Why don't we go to my office so we can? James's office? The office had views of the entire avenue. Matthew sat in a leather chair while James opened a file on his desk. Mr. Vega, I understand your concern, but the decision not to renew your contract is completely within the legal framework. The owner? Who is the owner? Matthew interrupted. I need to talk to them. There's been a misunderstanding. My mother, she said something inappropriate at Christmas dinner, and if that somehow reached the owner's ears, your mother has nothing to do with this, James said, although Matthew noticed something odd in his tone. It's simply a business decision. Then at least let me apply to renew. I can pay more. I can. The market price is $800 a month, James said firmly. Can you pay that amount? Matthew opened his mouth. He closed it. The math was brutal and obvious. There are other apartments in New York, James continued, not without some compassion. I suggest you start looking soon. The market in January is competitive. Matthew stood up, feeling dizzy. This isn't right. Something isn't right. Here. As he left, his gaze fell again on the photograph of his father, and then he noticed something he hadn't seen before. In the background of the slightly unfocused image was a woman, with a simple dress and her hair pulled back. She was holding a folder and talking to a man in a suit. Something about the woman's posture felt familiar. 2:15 p.m. The mall at Columbus Circle. Audrey had decided that retail therapy was the solution. While Matthew dealt with the apartment issue, she would go by the dress she had seen at Nordstrom for the New Year's Eve party in line to pay. She pulled out the silver credit card she always used, the one that never had a limit, the one that made the sales associates look at her with respect. She swiped the card through the reader. Declined. You can try again, Audrey requested, with a tense smile. The cashier tried 2 more times. Declined. I'm sorry, Mom, the card isn't going through. Do you have another form of payment? The people behind Audrey in line began to murmur. She felt her cheeks burn. It must be a system error, she said, quickly putting the card away. I'll come back later. She left the store, her heart pounding. She immediately called the bank from her cell phone. Chase Bank, Maria speaking. How may I help you? My card was rejected, Audrey said, trying to sound calm but authoritative. I need to know what's going on. It's the card ending in 4829-9. One moment. Can you give me the name of the holder? Audrey Ruse Vega. HC here that this is an additional card. The primary holder is Catherine Vega. Audrey felt as if cold water had been thrown on her. Catherine, my husband's mother. Yes, ma'am. And that card was canceled yesterday at the request of the primary holder. Canceled. That's right. It ceased to be active at 2:32 p.m. yesterday. Is there anything else I can help you with? Audrey hung up without responding. Her hands were trembling, not from sadness, but from fury. She immediately dialed Matthew's number. Hello, he answered, sounding exhausted. Your mother, Audrey spat out. Canceled my credit card. Which card? The one I use, the one I've always used. How could she? Audrey, that's not your card, Matthew said, slowly, as if he were processing the information at the same time he was saying it. It's an additional card on my mother's account. You said it was ours. You said the company gave it to you as a benefit. I thought, no, Matthew, you lied, or you were too idiotic to know the truth. Audrey, calm down. We can fix this. I have my own card. We can use your card. Has a limit of $2,000, Audrey said coldly. Do you know how much I spend a month? Do you know how much it costs to maintain my image, my social media, my life? Maybe that's the problem, Matthew muttered. What did you say? Nothing. Forget it. I'm coming home. We need to talk. Audrey hung up and stood in the middle of the mall, surrounded by other people's shopping bags, bright window displays showing things she could no longer have. For the first time in 3 years, Audrey Ruse felt poor, and she hated that feeling with every fiber of her being. Day 2, December 29th, 800 a.m. Matthew woke up with a pounding headache. He had spent the whole night before arguing with Audrey. She wanted him to do something, to talk to his mother, to fix this. But how? His mother didn't answer his calls. He didn't know where she really lived. And every time he tried to think clearly, the image of his father on the Vega Properties wall came back to his mind. The doorbell rang. At 8:15 a.m. Matthew opened it, expecting the delivery person with the breakfast Audrey had ordered charged to her own card, this time with visible disgust. Instead, he found two men in reflective vests holding clipboards. "Good morning, Mr. Matthew Vega. We are from Vega Properties Asset Department. We are here to recover the Cadillac A6. Vehicle license plate 482. Matthew blinked, confused. "Recover? That's my car." The older man opened his clipboard and showed him a document. "According to our records, the vehicle is the property of Vega Properties LCA. You had temporary authorization for use, which has been revoked. We need you to hand over the keys and sign this return receipt." This is ridiculous. Matthew felt the blood rush to his face. "That car was given to me 2 years ago. I use it for work. You can't just come and take it." "Mr. Vega," the man said with professional patience, "you have the document here. The vehicle was never transferred to your name. It was always company property. Here is your signature, authorizing the temporary use for business representation purposes." He showed him a page, and there it was. Matthew's signature from 2 years ago on a document that clearly said temporary authorization. How had he not read it carefully? "What if I refuse?" "Then we will proceed to recover it with a tow truck and the backup keys we have in our possession." "Mr. Vega, this can be easy or difficult, you decide." Audrey appeared behind Matthew, still in her pajamas. "What is going on?" "They're taking the car," Matthew said in a defeated voice. "What?" Audrey pushed Matthew aside. "That car is ours. You can't just, Mom." "Please." The man maintained his professional tone. "We are only employees, following orders. If you have any complaints, you can go to our offices." Matthew turned around, went into the apartment, and returned with the Cadillac keys. He dropped them into the man's hand without a word. "Thank you for your cooperation. Sign here, please." Matthew signed the return receipt. The man inspected the car, took photographs, and 10 minutes later the gray Cadillac was disappearing down the street. Matthew and Audrey stood in the building entrance, staring at the empty space in the parking lot. "Your mother," Audrey said slowly, "is destroying us." "I don't understand." Matthew shook his head. "None of this makes sense. How can my mother have so much power over—" He stopped. An impossible, absurd idea began to form in his mind. The photograph of his father at Vega Properties, the word co-founder, James Torres's strange looks, the fact that the entire apartment, the car, the card were connected to Vega Properties. "No," he whispered. "It can't be." "What can't be?" Audrey asked. But Matthew was already running back to the apartment looking for his laptop. Search for the truth. Matthew typed into Google, Vega Properties owners. The first results showed basic corporate information. Vega Properties LC Ham, a real estate management company founded in 1995. Executive Director James Torres. Portfolio 47 properties in New York City and the metropolitan area. Estimated value $38 million. He clicked on images. Photographs of buildings, inauguration ceremonies, press articles appeared, and then he saw her. A photograph from 2015 taken at the inauguration of a residential complex in Brooklyn. In the foreground, James Torres cutting a ribbon, but in the background, clear as day, his mother, Catherine Vega, in a pantsuit talking to two men in suits who were evidently listening to her with deference. He zoomed in on the image. The caption read, "James Torres, Executive Director of Vega Properties at the inauguration of the Sea Towers Complex project, developed by the Vega family." The Vega family. With trembling hands, Matthew searched on LinkedIn, Catherine Vega, New York. There was no public profile, but when he searched for Vega Properties employees, a list appeared, and there, without a photo or description, appeared a name, Catherine Vega, principal, shareholder. No, Matthew ran his hands through his hair. Audrey walked over and read over his shoulder. "Your mother owns Vega Properties." "I don't know. Maybe." "Oh my God, Audrey. I think she does." "Then that apartment." It's hers. And the car? Hers. And the card? Hers. Everything is hers. Audrey collapsed onto the couch. Her. Face pale. We've been living in her house, spending her money, while you— She turned to him with furious eyes. While you boasted to everyone that you had made it on your own. Oh my God. Matthew. You told her to pay rent in her own house. Matthew felt nauseous. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know. How could you not know? Didn't you ever ask? Did it never seem strange to you that an apartment in the Upper East Side cost 400? I thought it was an employee price or something. She always lives so modestly with her old clothes, her small apartment. What small apartment? Audrey laughed humorlessly. Matthew. I'll bet anything that small apartment was also a sham. She probably has a mansion somewhere she never showed us. Matthew stood up abruptly and grabbed the house keys. Where are you going? Audrey asked. To find someone who will tell me the truth. 222nd MS, St. Luke's Hospital. His grandmother, Carol, was in room 34, recovering from pneumonia. Matthew hadn't visited her since she was admitted a week ago. He had been too busy with work and Christmas parties. When he entered the room, his grandmother was awake, reading a magazine. She looked up and a shadow of disappointment crossed her face before she could hide it. Matthew, what a surprise. Grandma. Matthew walked over and kissed her wrinkled cheek. She looked fragile, small beneath the hospital sheets. How are you feeling? Better. The nurses say I can go home in a few days. That's good. There was an awkward silence. Carol looked at him with those eyes that always saw more than one wanted to show. You didn't just come to ask about my health, did you? She finally said. What happened, Grandma? Matthew sat in the chair next to the bed. I need you to tell me the truth. About Mom. What truth? Vega Properties. The money, everything. Carol slowly closed the magazine. So you finally found out. I knew, son. I was there from the beginning. I watched your mother and father save every penny. For years, I watched them buy their first apartment. I watched them build that empire brick by brick. Why did they never tell me, Carol? She sighed, a tired sound that seemed to carry decades of weight. Because your mother wanted you to be strong on your own. She didn't want you to grow up like those spoiled rich kids who think the world owes them something. But they lied to me. They didn't lie to you. Carl corrected him firmly. They just didn't tell you everything. There is a difference. They let me believe that I was supporting the house, that I was taking care of her. And that made you feel good, didn't it? Carol asked. Knowingly, it made you feel important. The successful son who takes care of his poor widowed mother. Matthew opened his mouth to protest, but the words caught in his throat. Your mother, Carol continued, could have lived in a mansion. She could have retired 10 years ago, but she chose to live modestly. She chose to work every day, and she chose to give you advantages without you becoming dependent on them. Or she tried to. What do you mean? Matthew, how much did you spend last month on restaurants, on clothes, on trips? Matthew didn't answer. Your wife, Carol, almost spat the word. She has posted 47 photos in the last month showing off your luxurious life, handbags that cost more than a nurse's monthly salary, while your mother, the woman who owns all of that, wears the same jacket from 5 years ago. I didn't ask for any of that, Matthew said weakly. You didn't ask, but you accepted. And you didn't just accept, son. You boasted. You told the world that you had achieved all of that. And on Tuesday night, in front of 25 people, you told your mother to pay the rent or get out. Tears began to roll down Matthew's cheeks. I didn't know. And does that make it better? Carol took his hand with her weak strength. Your mother taught you with her silence, but you learned the wrong lesson. You thought her humility was weakness, her generosity an obligation. What do I do now, Grandma? Carol squeezed his hand. Learn what she tried to teach you from the beginning. The real value of things. The effort it takes to build something. The difference between having privileges and deserving them. How do you start? From scratch. Son, like your mother and father did. Without their money, without their contacts. Just you and your own effort. That's the only way you can look her in the eyes again someday. Matthew sat there for a long time, holding his grandmother's hand, crying for everything he had lost and for everything he was just beginning to understand. 2 weeks later, January, Matthew was standing in front of an old building in the Queens neighborhood. The paint on the facade was peeling. There was no doorman. The mailbox was rusty. This is number 23, said the real estate agent, a young man with excessive gel in his hair, $405 square feet, 1 bedroom, small kitchen, 8th floor, no elevator. How much? $850 a month, plus utilities. Audrey, standing behind Matthew with her arms crossed, let out a bitter laugh. Is this a joke? It's a shoebox. It's what we can afford, Matthew said without looking at her. I can't live here. Audrey gestured toward the building. Look at this place. What am I going to post on Instagram? Living my best life in an apartment with no elevator. Then don't live here, Matthew said wearily. The real estate agent coughed uncomfortably. Do you want to see the inside or? Yes, Matthew said. No, Audrey said at the same time. Matthew looked at her for the first time that afternoon. Audrey, I need to make a decision. I have to hand over the keys to the penthouse on January 31st. I can afford this place. It's ugly, it's small, but it's what my real salary allows me. If that doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for me, Audrey said firmly. Matthew, this is not what I signed up for when I married you. What did you sign up for? A contract where I keep you in endless luxury. I signed up for a life you promised. The successful architect, the nice apartment, the trips, the dinners. That life wasn't real, Matthew said, feeling something break inside him. It was a lie. A lie. My mother financed while I believed the story. Audrey took off her sunglasses and looked at him with cold eyes. Then find a way to get it back. Talk to your mother, beg for forgiveness, do whatever you have to do, but don't ask me to live in this. She looked at the building with disgust. Hold. My mother won't answer my calls. She doesn't respond to messages. I don't know where she really lives. Then find out. Go to her office. Beg her. If you have to, I won't beg her for money. Why not? Audrey threw up her hands. Pride? Now you have pride? You didn't have it when you were spending her money on $800 dinners. The truth of those words hit Matthew like a punch. I'm going to rent this apartment, he finally said. You can come with me or not, you decide. He turned to the real estate agent. I want to see it. Audrey stood on the sidewalk while Matthew climbed the stairs behind the agent. She didn't follow him. When Matthew reached the 8th floor, panting and his legs burning, he knew Audrey was right about one thing. This wasn't what they had had, but for the first time in his life it would truly be his. Chapter 6. The Awakening. The apartment in Queens was exactly as depressing as it looked from the outside. The walls had moisture stains. The kitchen had appliances from the 90s. The bathroom had pink tiles that were probably original from 1975. But it was his, or at least it would be, after he signed the contract. Matthew moved in on January 30th with 2 suitcases and a feeling of shame that weighed on his chest like a stone. Audrey had left 3 days earlier back to her parents' house in Miami, leaving a note that simply said, "Call me when you become the man I married again." Matthew didn't know if he had ever been that man. He spent his first day in the new apartment on the floor. He still had no furniture, staring at the cracked ceiling, making calculations on his phone. Net salary to $800. Rent plus utilities, $9.20. Food, $300. Transportation, subway, bus, $60. Basic expenses, $100. Total, $140.20. He had 300 hours left over a month. In his previous life, Audrey spent that on a handbag. A 15 February. Matthew had started looking for extra work. His current position at the architecture firm paid well, but not enough to climb out of the emotional and financial hole he was in. One night, while eating instant noodles on the floor of his empty apartment, the table wouldn't arrive until the following week. He received a message from an unknown number. "Hello, Matthew. I'm Andrew Valena. I run a small firm in Brooklyn. I work on social housing projects. Your father worked on some of our first buildings. I've seen your portfolio. Would you be interested in talking?" Matthew replied immediately. "Yes. When?" Day 20. Meeting with Andrew. Andrew Villanueva's office was in a converted industrial space in Brooklyn. The walls were exposed brick. The desks were repurposed works. There were 5 young employees working on MacBooks surrounded by models and blueprints. Andrew was about 50 years old with disheveled hair and the energy of someone who still loved his job after decades of doing it. "Your father," he said, pointing to a photograph on the wall. "He was one of the best construction workers I ever worked with. He understood the structure of a building like no one else. Not just the construction, but the soul of a space." Matthew looked at the photograph. His father, 20 years younger, smiling next to a group of workers. "I didn't know you worked together for." Years before, he and your mother founded Vega Properties. Andrew looked at him directly. "Do you know what your father told me once?" Andrew, "Buildings aren't for showing off. They are for people to live in with dignity." Matthew felt a knot in his throat. "I have a project," Andrew continued. "Renovation of housing in Staten Island. Old buildings that need to be converted into affordable apartments. The budget is tight. The salary isn't impressive, but the work matters." "How much?" $2,000 a month for 6 months. If it works out, maybe more." It was less than he earned now, but Matthew nodded. "When do I start, Andrew?" Andrew smiled. "Monday brings sturdy boots. You'll be on the construction site, not just in the office." Day 45, March. Matthew was waking up at 600 a.m. He took the subway to Staten Island. He worked on dusty construction sites until 600 p.m. He came home. Exhausted, ate something simple. He had learned to cook pasta, omelets, and basic salads, and spent his nights drawing designs on his old laptop. 1. Saturday, his next-door neighbor, an older woman named Rose, knocked on his door. "Excuse me, young man, do you have any sugar?" I ran out. Matthew gave her a package. Rose looked over his shoulder at the almost empty apartment. "Did you just move in a month ago? And your wife?" "I don't have a wife. I'm in transition." Rose nodded wisely. "Life puts you where you need to be, not where you want to be. Come for dinner tomorrow if you like. I'm making spaghetti." Matthew went. Rose's spaghetti reminded him of his mother's, and for the first time since Christmas he felt something akin to the warmth of home. Day 60, April. Audrey sent him divorce papers. Matthew signed them without a fight. Part of him felt relieved. She deserved someone who could give her the life she wanted, and he needed to discover who he was without the weight of all those expectations. Day 90. May the project in Staten Island was taking shape. Matthew had designed a modular system that allowed old industrial buildings to be converted into 500 square FT homes with natural light and open spaces. The cost per unit, $75,000. Andrew was impressed. This could work on a larger scale. Have you thought about presenting it to investors? I don't have contacts, Matthew admitted. Well, I do. Let me make some calls. That night, Matthew sat in his small apartment. He now had a table, a mattress, and 3 chairs bought from IKEA, and thought about his mother. Over the past 3 months he had tried to call her 47 times. All messages remained. Yoon answered. He wrote one more. Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to give me anything back. I just want you to know that I finally understand. I'm learning, slowly but learning. I love you, Matthew. Send. He didn't expect a response, but 10 minutes later his phone vibrated. A message from a number he recognized as James Torres's. Your mother received your message. She says she is well and that she is proud. You have found honest work. Keep going. When the time is right, she will contact you. Matthew read the message 5 times. She is proud. For the first time in months, he smiled. Day 120, July, 6 months later. The New York summer heat made Matthew's small apartment in Queens feel like an oven. He had no air conditioning, just an old fan that Rose had given him. But there was something liberating in the honestly earned sweat, in the discomfort, that reminds you that you are alive, that you are fighting. Matthew had gotten up at 5:30 a.m. to take advantage of the cool hours. On his tiny table, surrounded by blueprints and models made with recycled cardboard, was something that had kept him awake for weeks, a project that could change everything. Dignified housing, New York, 120 modular apartments on abandoned industrial land in Staten Island. Total cost $9.6 million. Price per unit $80. Aimed at low to middle income families who had been pushed out of the New York housing market. It wasn't just architecture, it was social justice. His phone rang. Andrew. Matthew, good morning. Are you sitting down? Yes. Why? Because I got you an audience. There is an investment group interested in social impact projects. They want to see you on August 15th. Matthew felt his heart race. Who are they? I can't tell you much. They are discreet, but they have serious capital. If your presentation is good, Matthew, this could be real. How much capital? Enough to build the entire complex. But, Matthew, you need to be flawless. This is an opportunity that won't be repeated. When he hung up, Matthew looked at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. 6 months had changed his face. He was thinner. He had dark circles under his eyes from working nights. His hands had calluses from being on the construction sites. But his eyes had something they had never had before. Purpose. August 1st, preparation. Matthew spent the next 2 weeks preparing the presentation of his life. He worked on the construction site by day and in his apartment by night. Rose brought him coffee and omelettes. Sometimes she stayed to watch him work. You remind me of someone, she said one night. Who? A woman I used to see on the subway years ago. She always carried blueprints under her arm. She always had that same look you have. Determination, mixed with fear. Matthew looked up. What was she like? Older, elegant, but simple. I once saw her arguing with 3 men in suits over a contract. She shut all 3 of them up. Rose smiled. She had your same jaw, your same way of frowning when you think. Matthew felt a lump in his throat. Was it my mother? I don't know, son, but whoever that woman was, she built important things, like you are now. August 15th, the day. The address Andrew had given him was on Park Avenue. Matthew felt a chill when he approached the building. It was the Vega Properties office. He immediately called Andrew. There's a mistake. You gave me the wrong address. There's no mistake, Andrew said softly. Trust me. Just go in. Matthew stood in front of the building. He had visited 6 months ago in a state of confusion and panic. Now he returned with a worn briefcase, a suit he had bought at a second-hand store for $45, his first expensive purchase in months, and 50 pages of dreams printed on paper. The receptionist recognized him. Mr. Sayre Hafting. Vega, they are waiting for you in the 4th-floor boardroom. Who is waiting? For me? She smiled enigmatically. Go up and you will find out. The Executive boardroom. Matthew went up in the elevator, his heart pounding so hard he thought everyone in the building could hear it. The doors opened on the fourth floor, a level he hadn't visited before, a hallway with glass walls. Through them he could see New York City, stretching out to the sea, and at the end of the hall, a wooden door with a boardroom, president's office. He knocked. "Come in." He opened the door, and he froze. Sitting at the head of a long oak table, dressed in a gray pantsuit, her hair perfectly styled, her hands clasped in. In front of her was his mother, Catherine Vega. To her right, James Torres. To her left, a woman he recognized as Rachel Martinez, the lawyer, and in the back chairs, 3 more people he didn't know, but who by their folders and laptops were clearly part of the executive team. "Matthew," Catherine said in a calm, professional voice. "Please sit down." Matthew couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. "Mom, I am President Vega here," she said without cruelty but with firmness. "And you are the architect Matthew Vega, who will present a social housing project to us, correct?" Matthew swallowed hard. "Correct." "Then sit down and begin your presentation. We have 1 hour. With trembling legs, Matthew walked toward the projector. He connected his old laptop. The screen had a crack in the corner that he had tried to fix with tape. While waiting for the system to load, he looked at his mother. She was looking at him with a neutral, businesslike expression, as if she were evaluating a complete stranger, and in a way she was. The Matthew she had kicked out of her house 6 months ago no longer existed. "Good morning," he began, his voice barely shaking. "My name is Matthew Vega. I am an architect specializing in social housing, and I am here to present a project that can change the lives of 120 families in New York." The first slide appeared, a photograph of the abandoned land in Staten Island, ugly, full of trash, forgotten. "This is a space our city has abandoned," he said. "But I see potential. I see homes. I see dignity." For the next 45 minutes, Matthew presented every detail of his project. Modular design, optimized 500 square foot apartments, sustainable and recycled materials, natural light in every unit, common spaces for community, realistic budget, construction cost per unit $75,000, final sale price $80,000, $80,000, margin 67%. Enough for sustainability, not for excessive profit. Social impact: 120 families with dignified housing, creation of 40 jobs during construction, revitalization of the Staten Island neighborhood, replicable model in other cities. As he spoke, he noticed his mother taking notes. James nodded occasionally. Rachel verified numbers on her calculator. When he finished, there was silence. Then James spoke. "The budget is tight. How do you guarantee there won't be cost overruns?" "'Cause I have worked on construction sites personally for 6 months," Matthew responded. "I know every supplier, every cost, every risk, and I have built an 8% cushion for contingencies." Rachel asked, "And what if the city council doesn't approve the permits?" "I have already had preliminary conversations with the Department of Urban Planning. The project aligns with their social housing goals. I am 85% confident in the approval." One of the executives he didn't know raised her hand. "Why should we invest $996 million in a project with barely a 6,007% margin? There are residential developments with a 25% return." Matthew looked at her directly because this isn't just about money. It's about doing the right thing. New York has a housing crisis. Thousands of families are being pushed out of the city where they were born because the prices are inhumane. This project won't make us rich, but it will let us sleep well at night. The woman wrote something down without expression. Finally, Catherine spoke. It was the first time in 45 minutes. "Matthew, a personal question." Everyone in the room tensed up. "Why this project?" Why now? Matthew looked at her. 6 months of pain, learning, and growth passed between their gazes. 'Cause 6 months ago I lost everything. My house, my car, my marriage, my pride. And in that process I discovered something. Living in an 805-feet apartment in Queens, climbing 8 flights of stairs without an elevator every day, cooking instant noodles because that's what I can afford. That taught me more about architecture than 5 years of college. How? Catherine asked. Because I understood that buildings aren't for impressing, they are for living, and that the people who need dignified housing the most are precisely the ones with the least access to it. This project exists because I lived what they live, and because my father, his voice, cracked slightly, taught me that the hands that build matter more than the papers that sign. Catherine closed her notebook. Thank you, Matthew. We will make a decision and inform you within 48 hours. That is all. That is all. You may leave. Matthew gathered his laptop, his papers, his worn briefcase. He walked toward the door. With his hand on the doorknob, he paused. President Vega, yes, regardless of the decision you make, thank you for everything, for every lesson, even the ones that hurt. He left, without waiting for a response. Deliberation. When Matthew left, Catherine remained seated in silence. The executives waited for her word. Opinions, she finally said. James was the first. The project is solid. The numbers are realistic, and he has done his homework, but the margin is thin. One mistake, and we lose money. Rachel nodded. Legally, everything is in order. Permits are feasible. Contracts are clear. But I agree the financial risk is high. The executive who had questioned the margin spoke. As a pure investment, there are better options. But she hesitated. As a statement of values, as a legacy, this is powerful. Catherine looked out the window. She could see the Empire State Building in the distance, that monument to sustained effort to construction that takes generations. Anthony, she murmured, what would you do? She knew the answer. Anthony would have signed immediately. He had always said, buildings aren't for accumulating wealth. They are for creating dignity. We approve the project, Catherine said. Full investment, $916 million. Under what conditions? James asked. Matthew will be the project director. He will report monthly to this council. He will have operational autonomy, but strict financial supervision. And she paused. If he succeeds, we will offer him a permanent position at Vega Properties, not as my son, as an architect who proved his worth. August 17th, 11:00 p.m. Matthew was in his apartment, unable to sleep when his phone rang. Unknown number. Hello, Matthew Vega, a professional. Urgent female voice. Yes, this is Mount C Hospital. Your mother, Catherine Vega, has been admitted. She suffered a cardiac episode. She is stable but is asking for you. The world stopped. I'm on my way. Mount Sinai Hospital. Midnight. Matthew arrived sweating out of breath after running from the subway. The receptionist directed him to the 3rd floor, cardiology, room 37. James was in the hallway looking exhausted. What happened? Matthew grabbed his arm. Stress, exhaustion. Your mother has been working 16-hour days since he stopped. Since Christmas, Matthew finished. Since? She kicked me out. She didn't kick you out, James said softly. She freed you. But that doesn't mean it didn't hurt her. Can I see her? James hesitated. She's awake, but Matthew, she's weak. Don't agitate her. Matthew gently pushed the door. The room was dimly lit, connected to monitors that emitted regular beeps. Was his mother. She looked small, fragile, for the first time in her life. Catherine Vega looked like what she was, a 64-year-old woman who had carried too much weight for too long. Mom, he whispered. She opened her eyes. A weak smile crossed her face. Hello, son. Matthew walked closer, took her hand. It was cold. What did you do? Why are you doing this? To yourself? Because I had to be sure, she said in a tired voice. Sure of what? That you had learned that when I gave you this opportunity, you would seize it for the right reasons. She squeezed his hand weakly. Your presentation today. Anthony would have cried with pride. Matthew felt tears rolling down his cheeks. Forgive me for everything, for every cruel word, for every moment of ingratitude. For Catherine raised her free hand and touched his cheek. You are already forgiven. I forgave you the night you left. What took time was waiting for you to forgive yourself. I don't deserve this project. I don't deserve your trust. It's not about deserving, she said. It's about learning, and you learned. Matthew, I see in your eyes today that you understand. You understand the value of effort, the weight of responsibility, the difference between privilege and entitlement. A doctor entered. Miss Vega needs rest. And you? He looked at Matthew. You can stay, but keep the conversation brief. When the doctor left, Catherine closed her eyes. The project is approved, she murmured. You start Monday. James will give you the details. You're going to be okay. I'm going to be perfect. But you have to promise me something. Anything. Don't work like I worked. Don't carry everything alone. Ask for help when you need it. Trust your team. And Matthew, yes, live. Don't just build buildings. Build a life. One that is worthwhile. Do. You promise me? I promise you, Mom. She smiled, already half asleep from the medication. Good, because I didn't do all this for you to repeat my mistakes. I did it so you could build something better. 6 months later, February of the following year, the land in Staten Island had been transformed. Where there was once garbage and abandonment, there were now solid foundations, steel structures rising toward the sky, and the constant sound of the future being forged in construction. Matthew was on the site at 7,000 a.m. e.m. every morning with his helmet, boots, and blueprints under his arm. His team was small but dedicated. 2 young architects, 1 engineer, 3 construction foremen who had worked with his father years ago. Matthew, one of the workers, called him. We have a problem with Unit 23. The measurements don't match. Matthew climbed the scaffolding. He had lost his fear of heights weeks ago and personally checked. The error was minimal, but it could cause structural problems. We'll dismantle this section, he decided. Better to lose 2 days than compromise safety. It wasn't the first difficult decision, nor would it be the last. Monthly reports every first Friday of the month. Matthew presented progress to the Vega Properties Council. Catherine, fully recovered from her cardiac episode, presided over these meetings with a critical eye. Unit 45 is a week behind schedule, she pointed out at the March meeting. Problem with the window supplier, Matthew explained. It's already resolved. We'll be back on schedule next week. And the budget? We are 3% under projection. I negotiated better prices with 3 suppliers. James smiled from his seat. Catherine simply nodded and continued with the next page of the report. But after the meeting, when everyone had left, she stopped him. Good work, Matthew. 3 words, but coming from her, they were worth more than any paycheck. Crisis. May. One rainy Tuesday in May, part of a wall collapsed. No one was hurt, thank goodness, but 3 workers had been in that area minutes earlier. The investigation revealed that a subcontractor had used cheaper materials than specified to increase their margins. Matthew was devastated. I should have supervised more closely, he told Andrew that night, sitting on the construction site in the rain. You can't be everywhere, Andrew replied, but you can learn from this. The next day, Matthew fired the subcontractor, implemented daily material inspections, and added 2 quality supervisors to the team. It cost him $35,000 extra from the contingency budget. When he presented the incident to the council, he expected reproaches. Instead, Catherine said, mistakes happen. What matters is how we respond. You did the right thing. First, family. August. The first completed unit was delivered. In August, the Smith family, father, mother, 2 children, and a grandmother, had been living in a shared 300 QFT apartment in Lower East Side, paying $700 a month. When Matthew handed them the keys to their new 500 square FT home, Mrs. Smith cried. "It's beautiful," she kept saying, walking through the empty but light-filled apartment. "I never thought we could have something like this." Her youngest son, Luke, a 10-year-old, ran up to Matthew. "You designed this?" "Yes. I want to be an architect when I grow up, too, to build nice houses for people like us." Matthew knelt down. "You know what? You're exactly the kind of architect the world needs." He gave the boy his business card. "When you're ready to study, call me. I'll help you." That night, Matthew sent a photo to his mother, Luke standing at the entrance of his new house, smiling, with a gap between his front teeth. Catherine replied, "This is what building a legacy means. Well done, son." December 24th, 1 year later. Catherine was in the kitchen of her real apartment in the Upper West Side. Not the penthouse, not a mansion, just a comfortable, light-filled home with photographs of Anthony on the walls and the aroma of roasted turkey filling every corner. Matthew arrived at 5 p.m. with 2 bags of groceries. "I came to help with dinner," he said. "You know how to cook now." Catherine raised an eyebrow. "Rose taught me the basics. Don't put me in charge of anything complicated, but I can peel potatoes without cutting myself." They worked together in the kitchen. Matthew peeling vegetables, Catherine preparing the gravy. The radio played Christmas carols. "How many are coming?" Matthew asked. 12. James and his family, Rachel, Andrew, Rose, your grandmother, Carol, some company employees, and Luke Smith and his family. I invited them. Matthew felt a knot in his throat. "Mom, it's a family dinner," she said, simply. "And family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who build with you." Dinner, 8:30 p.m. The table was smaller than the year before. There was no expensive china or crystal glasses, just mismatched plates, regular glasses, and food made with love. But the conversation was real. The laughter was genuine. And when Luke showed Matthew a drawing he had made, a tall building with the word Hope written above it, everyone applauded. At 10 p.m., Matthew stood up. His heart was pounding. "I want to say something." The table fell silent. Exactly 1 year ago, at a Christmas dinner, I said the cruelest words I have ever said to someone I love. I told my mother to pay the rent in her own house. I humiliated her. I treated her like a burden. He looked at Catherine, who was listening with bright eyes. "And she," he continued, "did what only a truly wise mother would do. She didn't yell at me. She didn't explain. She simply let me fall. She let me lose everything. And in that fall she taught me to fly." He turned fully toward her. "Mom, I spent this year learning what you always knew, that the value of things is not in their price, but in the effort it took to create them. That wealth without character is poverty disguised, and that true love sometimes has to be hard to be real." He pulled an envelope from his pocket. "This is for you." Catherine opened it. Inside was a check for $16,800. "It's every dollar I spent with your credit card during those 3 years," Matthew explained. "It took me 12 months to save it, but it's yours with interest." Catherine looked at the check. Then she tore it into pieces. "I don't want your money," she said softly. "I want your character, and that, my son, is priceless." She stood up and hugged him. For the first time in a year, mother and son embraced, an embrace that healed all wounds. The table erupted in applause. Grandma Carol was crying. Rose shouted, "Bravo!" James raised his glass. Luke whispered to his mother, "When I grow up, I want to be like Matthew." Miss Mill. Miss Sunsay smiled. then? Learn not only from his work, son, learn from his heart. After dinner, midnight, when everyone had left, Matthew helped his mother clean up. They washed dishes, side by side in comfortable silence. The project is inaugurating in March, Matthew said. All 120 units completed, 100% occupancy. I know James keeps me informed. And after that, Andrew offered me a partnership in his firm, but I also have other options. Catherine stopped washing and looked at him. What do you want, Matthew? Not what I want, not what others expect. What does your heart want? Matthew thought carefully. I want to continue doing this social housing. Projects that matter, but also he hesitated. Also, I want to be close to you. I lost many years without truly knowing who you are, without appreciating everything you built. I want to make up for that time. Smiled. Then I have a proposal. Vega Properties is expanding its social impact division. We need a director, someone who understands the architecture, but also the heart behind it. Are you offering me a job? I am offering you a purpose with a fair salary, no special privileges, but with the opportunity to change hundreds of lives. Are you interested, Matthew? He looked her in the eyes. Yes, but with one condition. Which one? That we meet for dinner at least once a week. No talking about work, just mother and son making up for lost time. Catherine extended her hand. Deal. They shook hands formally. Then they laughed and hugged. 29. Inauguration of the Anthony Vega complex. Matthew was 40 years old. His hair was beginning to show the first gray streaks, but his eyes shone with the satisfaction of someone who had found his place in the world. He was standing in front of a complex of 15 buildings on the outskirts of New York. Anthony Vega Residential Complex, 450 social impact homes. Beside him was Catherine, now 69 years old officially, retired but never truly absent. Your father would be screaming with excitement, she said. I know. Sometimes I feel like he's here, watching. He always has been. In the audience were families who had received housing. Luke Smith, now 15, and with a full scholarship to Anne Architecture School. Rose sitting in the front row with a handkerchief for her tears. James, Rachel, Andrew, the entire team that had made this possible, and a new woman next to Matthew, Anne, a school teacher who worked in marginalized neighborhoods. They had been together for 2 years. She understood his passion. She shared his purpose. When Matthew took the microphone, he thought about his prepared speech. Then he ignored it and spoke from the heart. This project is named after my father, Anthony Vega, a man who believed that buildings aren't for accumulating wealth, but for creating dignity. But it is also the legacy of my mother, Catherine Vega, who taught me the most important lesson of my life, that true love sometimes has to let you fall so you can learn to fly. He looked at his mother. 5 years ago, I was an arrogant man who believed he deserved everything without having earned it. Today, I am just a man who tries every day to be worthy of the last name he carries. These 450 homes are not my achievement. They are our achievement, of every family that trusted the project, of every worker who put their sweat into every brick, of every person who believed that New York can be a city where everyone has a dignified home, and it is a promise. As long as I live, I will continue building, not for my wallet, but for our collective future. The crowd applauded. Matthew cut the ceremonial ribbon, the doors opened, and the families began to enter their new homes. Luke approached Matthew. Do you remember when you gave me your card 5 years ago? Of course, I kept it. And now the boy showed an envelope. I was accepted to the Columbia University Graduate School of Architecture with a full scholarship. I want to design buildings like you. Not like me, Matthew said, putting a hand on his shoulder. Better than me. Learn from my mistakes and build a world that we can only imagine. That night, Catherine's apartment terrace Catherine and Matthew were sitting on the terrace looking at the lights of New York City stretching out to the sea. "Are you happy, son?" Catherine asked. "Yes, more than ever. And Anne is. Different from Audrey. Real, genuine. She loves my work, not my status. That's the difference between love and transaction." Matthew nodded. Then he asked, "And you? Mom, are you happy?" Catherine thought carefully. "I am at peace. Which is better than happiness? Happiness comes and goes. Peace remains." "What gives you peace?" "Seeing you become the man I always knew you could be. Seeing the Vega name means something bigger than money. Knowing that when I'm no longer here, there will be something worthwhile to inherit." "Don't talk like that. You're going to live another 30 years. Catherine laughed. "Maybe. But when my time comes, I want you to know something, that everything I built," she extended her hand toward the city, "is not my true legacy. You are the man you became. That is my masterpiece." Matthew felt tears in his eyes. "I don't deserve a mother like you." "No one deserves love, Matthew. We can't. Only honor it. And you have honored it." They sat there as New York City shone below them, a city of dreams built with effort, of homes earned with dignity, of legacies that transcend generations. And in that moment they both knew that. Catherine's silence that almost destroyed her family, had finally spoken, and its message was clear, true. Love is not demonstrated with easy gifts, but with difficult lessons. It is not measured in dollars spent, but in character forged. Catherine Vega had built a real estate empire, but her true inheritance was a son who finally understood that the value of a man is not measured by what he owns, but by what he builds with his own hands.